Hi, it's Stephanie, and this is lesson 22 of the B2 course. So this is going to be a vocabulary lesson, and the title of the lesson is Expressions with Take. So my name is Stephanie, this is level B2, and we are on lesson 22. Okay, so in this lesson, we are going to be practicing using a very common verb in English, and that's the verb take. We will be practicing using phrasal verbs with take, and we will also have a look at some useful expressions also using take. So, before we start, let's just review the fact that take is an irregular verb. Take, took, taken. So remember, when we're going to be using this verb, it is irregular. So if you're going to use a past tense, took, or for example, a present perfect, then taken. Okay, so as I explained, take is a very, very common verb in the English language, and so are phrasal verbs. Now, even if you don't feel comfortable using phrasal verbs yourself, if you are corresponding, you're talking with native speakers, it's very important to understand phrasal verbs because we like to use them. There are always alternatives, but native speakers do prefer to use phrasal verbs. So very important that you start to increase your awareness, understanding, and your comfort with using some of them. So this lesson is all about the verb take. And to begin with, we're going to look at 7 sentences with 7 phrasal verbs using take and a different preposition. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to see if you can think of a different verb that you could use instead of the phrasal verb. So have a look at the sentences, and as I'm reading it, see if you can think of an alternative to the highlighted verb. Okay, so look at these example sentences. Can you think of an alternative to using the verb take? Number 1. The jeans I bought were too small, so I took them back and exchanged them for a larger size. Number 2. I think it's polite to take off your shoes when you enter someone's home. Number 3. I wanted to make a good impression, so I tried hard to take part in the meeting. Number 4. Assembly always takes place at 8:30 a.m. Number 5. Can you take care of the children this afternoon, as I will be late home from work? Number 6. She's new. I think you should take that into account when making your decision. And number 7, the marketing department took advantage of the situation to promote the new product. So as you can see in these examples, take as a phrasal verb is very, very common in the English language. But can you think of an alternative for these 7 phrasal verbs? So pause the slide and see if you can write down 7 different verbs that you might use. Okay, how did you do? Well, to help you, I will give you 7 alternatives, but they're not in the right order. So we'll have a look at the 7 phrasal verbs. I'll give you 7 synonyms, and let's see if you can match with the correct phrasal verb. Okay, so also let's see if these are the verbs that you thought of as well. Okay, so on the left we have our phrasal verb, take back, take off, take part in, take place, take care of, take into account, and take advantage of. And on the right, I have a list of possible alternatives. Profit from, look after, return, consider, remove, happen, and participate. So what I want you to do is to pause the slide and see if you can match the phrasal verb with a possible synonym. If you're not sure, have a look back at the previous slide where you can see the phrasal verb in context. Okay, how did you do? Shall we check our answers together and see if you managed to match those correctly? So take back is return. Take off is remove. Take part in is participate. Take place is happen. Take care of is look after. Take into account is consider. And take advantage of is profit from. So as always, as I've explained in previous lessons, it's really important to learn new vocabulary in context. So let's have a look at these alternative verbs in the sentences. Okay, so number 1, the jeans I bought were too small, so I returned them and exchanged them for a larger size. Number 2, I think it's polite to remove your shoes when you enter someone's home. Number 3, I wanted to make a good impression, so I tried hard to participate in the meeting. Number 4, assembly always happens at 8:30 a.m. Number 5, can you look after the children this afternoon, as I will be late home from work? Number 6, she's new. I think you should consider that when making your decision. And number 7, the marketing department profited from the situation to promote the new product. So there you have 7 phrasal verbs using take and 7 alternative verbs that you could use. But as I explained, native speakers prefer to use a phrasal verb instead. Okay, let's have a look at another 3 phrasal verbs using take. So I'm going to show you 3 pictures. And what I'm asking you is, what phrasal verb do you think is being illustrated in these images? So remember, the verb is take, but what preposition are you going to use after it? Okay, so picture 1, perhaps think about family relationships, family similarities. Picture 2, think about what the plane does in order to get into the air. And picture 3, think about a new hobby. What verb might you use when you want to describe starting a new hobby? So pause the clip, pause the slide, and see if you can write down 3 phrasal verbs using take. What do you think? Okay, well, let's have a look at my ideas, see if you had the same ones. So picture 1, we have take after. Picture 2, take off. And picture 3, take up. Don't worry if you haven't heard of some of these before. We're going to have a look at these in context so that you will be able to understand what they mean and how we use them. Okay, so the first one, take after. Let's have a look at some example sentences and see if you can have a clearer idea as to what this verb means. So, he takes after his father. They both have the same features. He takes after his father. They are never on time. He takes after his father. They are both excellent at languages. So looking at these examples, how do you understand the phrasal verb take after? Maybe pause the slide and have a think. Okay, so to take after somebody means to have similarities, to follow them in some way. Doesn't necessarily have to be a physical attribute, so it's not necessarily that you look like them. As in the examples, it could also be perhaps you're both always late or you share the same skill. But it's somebody that you are related to. So when you take after somebody, it's a member of your family from an older generation. So you would take after your mother, your father, your grandmother, an aunt, or an uncle. Okay, let's look at the next one. So here we had take off, which I think is more familiar. The planes always take off from the southern runway. The plane took off late, but still landed on time. Korea Airways flight K562 is due to take off at 9 a.m. So from these example sentences, we can understand that take off means become airborne. But this is an interesting phrasal verb, take off, because we met it earlier. Do you remember on the first slide? I think it's polite to take off your shoes when you enter someone's house. And here, take off means remove. So it illustrates that sometimes the same phrasal verb can have multiple meanings depending on the context. And take off is a key example of this. Take off can mean when the plane becomes airborne, but it can also mean take off your coat, take off your shoes, remove. So the context is really important. Okay, and our third picture, we had the family rollerblading. Did any of you manage to understand this phrasal verb? Let's look at some examples. The family have just taken up rollerblading. I can't remember the last time I took up a new hobby. I would like to take up Spanish, but I can't find a teacher in my town. So how do you understand the phrasal verb take up? Any ideas? Okay, so we can think of take up as to start in the context of a hobby or a skill. So to take up rollerblading in the example, to take up Spanish means to start a new hobby. Good. Okay, so in the next part of the lesson, we're going to move on and have a look at some expressions using take, and we will look at take plus noun. So I'm going to show you a slide with lots of different nouns on, and my question is, which of these nouns can be used with the verb take? So we have a taxi, a risk, a rest, a holiday, notes, a look, a break, a photo, a bath or shower, a walk, a chance, an exam. So, good idea to pause the slide now and think, which of these nouns can we use with the verb take? For example, can I take a taxi? Can I take a chance? So read through them and see if you can identify which you think we can use with take. Okay, how many did you choose? Let's have a look together at the answers. Well, the answer is all of them. All of these nouns can be used with the verb take. Take a holiday, take a look, take a walk, take a rest. All of these can be used with the verb take. So again, you can see take is a very common and very useful verb. Let's do some practice. I have 5 sentences and 5 gaps. I want you to complete the gaps using take and a noun from the previous slide. Number 1, take during the seminar or you will forget what you heard. 2, take at the view, it's amazing. Number 3, go on, take and apply for the job, you never know. Number 4, I'm so out of breath. Can we take... And number 5, he really took when he appointed someone so inexperienced for such a pivotal role. So pause the slide and see if you can complete the missing noun to make a take and noun expression. Okay, if you weren't sure, remember you can look back at the previous slide. It's not a memory test. Look back at the previous slide and see if you can choose the correct answer. Okay, let's have a look together. Number 1, take notes during the seminar or you will forget what you heard. Number 2, take a look at the view. It's amazing. Number 3, go on, take a chance and apply for the job. You never know. Number 4, I'm so out of breath. Can we take a rest? And number 5, he really took a risk when he appointed someone so inexperienced for such a pivotal role. Really well done if you managed to get all of those correct. That's really great. Okay, so for the final part of the lesson, we are going to have a look at some discussion topics, some questions that I would like to ask you. They're all using an expression or a phrasal verb with take. So as we read them through, think about what your answers would be to these questions. Number 1, who do you take after more, your mother or father? Number 2, if you're going to buy a new car, what factors do you take into account? Number 3, where do concerts take place in your city? Number 4, do you have a healthy lifestyle? How do you take care of yourself? Number 5, when was the last time you took up a new hobby? Number 6, have you ever taken part in a meeting in English? Number 7, in your culture, is it customary to take off your shoes when you enter someone's home? And number 8, if you aren't satisfied with something you have bought, do you take it back? So here we have 8 really nice questions that all use an expression or a phrasal verb with take. Again, it's good practice of seeing these in context, and the questions are all really common, normal questions, so you can see that it's a very useful verb to be able to use. So why don't you have a look at the 8 questions, and if you would like to write your answers to some of them or all of them, and then you can send them in to Perfectly Spoken and I will check them for you. So if you'd like to answer all 8, that would be fantastic, or maybe just some of them, that's fine too. But in your answers, try to use the phrasal verb. So for example, if we look at number 1, my question is, who do you take after more? In your answer, try to write, I think I take after my mother because. So in your answer, try to use the phrasal verb or the expression, because when you use it, that's when you start to assimilate the verb into your language. Really well done for the lesson today. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it useful. In lesson 24, we will have another vocabulary lesson, and this time it will be with the verb bring. So again, very useful. But next we're moving on to a grammar lesson in lesson 23. Remember, after you finish watching this lesson, there will be a test that you can do. So again, it's more practice at using the verb take. But for now, I will say goodbye, and I hope to see you really soon for another lesson on the B2 course. Thank you for watching.